time for a whole new generation to wise up and rise up. The Charlie Kirk Show.
All right, welcome back to the Charlie Kirk Show. Steve Deace, Blake Neff, myself. I'm Andrew Kolvet, executive producer of the show. So we're talking about dispensational. I didn't know we were going to go here, but this is fascinating. So you're walking through this history, and you're saying so the church was mostly pre-dispensationalist, and then at some point, would you say in the early 1900s?
Early 1900s, for sure.
It was the ascendancy of dispensationalism, which in a nutshell means that when the Bible's talking about who the church is or who the people of God are, he still means the Jewish people to some extent.
Yeah,
right?
that there's the Jews and the Christian and the Gentile church are on dual, D-U-A-L, dual tracks of redemption, of prophetic redemption. And we're in the age of the Gentiles now. And when the church is raptured, and that will be the end of the age of the Gentiles, and then God will turn to the Jewish people one last time for the fulfillment of that covenant. Right. And then we'll usher in the second coming of Christ.
Pre-dispensationalism believes that the church is the fulfillment.
Yes.
Now becomes the...
Yes.
Right. But which is it's complicated, right? Because...
And people within these camps don't even agree with each other all the time.
And by the way, just so the audience is clear, within these two camps, if you think of them as the sort of two ends of the spectrum, there's multiple camps in the middle and variations of each.
We could do a month of shows on this and just scratch the surface.
This is why, because the Bible, it's complicated, right? Because Paul's talking about, well, you're ingrafted branches, so which means that, we're like wild olive,
And that's why I think we should, and this is something Charlie and I definitely agreed on. That's why, while we're going to have this debate, and it needs to be had, okay? We're a generation past due having this debate. Are we still dispensational or are we historical? In the meantime, Islam hates us all.
That's exactly where we're going to land the plane.
And we need to focus on that.
That's where we're going to land the plane. You read my mind, because if there's anything that is clear to me about the last few months, it was that he had a laser pinpoint focus on raising the flag, sounding the alarm about the rise of Islam in the West. And so that's where we're going to land the plane. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Final segment of the day with Steve Deace, Blake Neff, myself, Andrew Kolvet. And, we just got done saying that we're going to land the plane because you could argue about dispensationalism or pre-dispensationalism until you're blue in the face. You'll never get anywhere. There's going to be people that disagree or agree on both sides. The point of that letter, and I just want to put a pin on that, and then we're going to go to Islam, is Charlie called what Israel was doing PR malpractice. And, it's kind of like the Bible says, the wounds of a friend can be trusted. He was respectful in tone because he's speaking to a world leader. But it was a private letter because it was pretty brutal, actually. It was saying, this is bad PR. And Charlie would say on the show, the Israeli PR and the lack of confronting this information machine that's against you is malpractice, and you need to fix it. And
which is a great argument against a Zionist conspiracy that controls the world when they have such a bad PR machine.
Well, no, that's a fair point. And I always think the other good point is that, if they control the world, why is the UN so against them? But why is it fixated on them? But the point is, Charlie was less concerned about that and more concerned about this rise of Islam in the West. You see this in places like Dearborn in America. You talk to politicians in Michigan, by the way, and they're like, "Well, I can't say that because I've been in these conversations because I gotta say things because there's so many Muslims now." Charlie was warning against invaders that would rule over you. And that's an example. That's how it happens. That's how it starts. And then you go to a place like London. You were with him in London. What was he saying when he was in London?
It was so jarring when we went in London and we get in this very posh, Tony, whatever, choose your word that you want, in central London, and storefronts have the lettering in Arabic. He was staying in a pretty decent hotel. If you turned on the television, there's as many television channels that are in Arabic as in English. They had Saudi TV, they had Lebanese TV, they had Pakistani TV, Qatari, Egyptian. They even had the Saudi children's channel, so it was showing a Spyro the Dragon show, but in Arabic. And it was so jarring for him to see that. And then he's talking to people, and they're saying, yeah, there's thousands of mosques in London at this point. People are running and getting elected to parliament on a free Gaza platform.
Well, and then you go to like France, and the women have to wear, subway shirts because the immigrant men are not used to seeing young women in tank tops or whatever. And there was, obviously you have the rape gangs, but it also affects just the body politic, because now you have to start speaking to this new contingent of voters
that is only growing.
And they're having way more kids.
People are bad at the math of this. They'll think this is a 4% minority, it's not a big deal. Yet in 25 years, they've grown to 8%, and they're still growing.
Yeah.
And so you can do the math and say, by 2050, the UK is going to be 25%.
There was that terrifying clip out of Denmark where this Danish guy is getting into a fight with, an argument, and with the Muslim immigrant, and he goes, "In 10 years, you don't have any babies. We have lots of kids." He's like, "We were going to control you in 10 years."
Here's the thing: for 1,200 years, there was no nation on earth called Israel, but we still had Islam. And so if you think I'm not saying we don't have to rethink some of our aspects of our alliance with Israel, but if you think that we are incurring the wrath of Islam because of our alliance with Israel, I'm going to disprove it right now. For 1,200 years, there was no nation on earth called Israel, but we still had Islam. How did Islam treat the Christian West during that time? It went to war with it the entire time. The Holy Roman Empire was formed because the Muslims had taken Vienna and they were a block south of Paris. All right, so this idea that if anything, Israel is actually a cudgel between us and Islam. If there were no Jewish state in the Middle East, all of that energy would just all be directed at us. And I think we can have, and I want us to have, the big prophetic debates. We're a generation overdue. Your boomer parents were wrong to care more about Israeli Defense Force maneuvers around the Temple Mount than the school board in your local neighborhood. They were wrong.
So well said. Thank you.
And you're wrong to rebuke. You're right to rebuke that. But let's also have a historical perspective and understand that that Islam hates Jews and Christians alike. We're all people of the book. And so whatever prophetic view we have of the nation of Israel will not alter what Islam thinks of Christendom whatsoever, and it will still try to conquer you nevertheless. And Charlie understood that, and that, I think, is where we are going to be able to find unity on this.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that it was probably the thing he railed against the loudest and the most in the final days. And, we have to come to grips with the fact that Islam is a political and a military ideology wrapped in a religious context.
Separation of church and state is not a debatable tension in Islam.
It doesn't exist. Yeah. Steve, please, really quick, where can people follow you and watch your show? At
Steve Deace Show, DEACE on X. Everything we do is all cataloged and indexed there for the Blaze and everywhere else. At Steve Deace Show on X.
This has been a pleasure, my friend. I just want to reiterate, Charlie loved you and he trusted you. And God bless you. Thank you for making the trip. I know this isn't easy, so you honor us.
Anytime I can do it, you let me know.
Thank you, Steve.
You got it, brother. God bless.
All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow with Tim Pool.